What is happening, D12? I'm back at it again with some more power rankings. And we are up to team number 2. And that team is the Austin Masonites. Okay, let me pull up the roster here. Okay. The theme song for the Austin Masonites that I chose was The Sound of Silence. A couple reasons why I chose this. Because we're not going to hear from Doug all year. He's super silent. But the other thing, I really love that song. And Doug has put together a very, very solid team here. So as we get further into these power rankings, I'm needing to stretch the meanings behind the songs a little bit. But yeah. So it was a year and a few weeks since I made that video mocking Doug, saying how, as Doug, saying that Doug was giving up on the season and how he doesn't think that he could beat me because he lost Jordy Nelson. And I had Devontae Adams and I had Randall Cobb, and I was set up to dominate my division last year. Well, we know how that ended. Doug didn't win the division. I for sure didn't win the division. But he had the best team in our division last year and didn't lose a ton and has a good, solid team. It is not only is his overall team very, very close to Mike's in terms of the projections, they're actually set up in a very similar way as well. They've got a really, really good quarterback, followed by a deep stable of awesome wide receivers. Running backs are a notch below that, and a good solid tight end. So, and Doug's not going to see this. Maybe I'll go through this one a little bit quicker. It'll still end up being 12 minutes by the time that I'm done, I'm sure. But at quarterback, his starting quarterback is Ben Roethlisberger in the high-powered Pittsburgh Steelers offense. And I'm going to go ahead and talk about his wide receiver one here as well, Antonio Brown. You'll notice that a lot of the guys at the top, they've got a combination where their quarterback matches up with a really, really good pass catcher. So Roethlisberger and Brown being maybe the best combo out of anyone. I'm trying to think of who else would even be up there, because Olsen and Newton don't do that. Maybe Jordy Nelson and Jordy's on this team, and they're not on the same D12 roster. But if you could take any quarterback wide receiver combination, you probably take Roethlisberger and Antonio Brown, because Matt Ryan sucks, so you won't pair him up with Julio. Brock Osweiler is an unknown, so Doug starting off very, very solid at the top. Antonio Brown, back-to-back D12 MVP seasons. No reason to expect that to change this year. His wide receiver two. Behind Roethlisberger, he has Tyrod Taylor on a very nice contract. He's got Derek Carr locked up for 5 years, and then he's got Tony Romo's stuffed pussy. Language alert. Back there as well. Romo is probably more of a $26 cap room than a $53 contract at this point, though. So his wide receivers, he runs 5 deep here on his starting lineup because wide receivers fill both of his flex spots. And this is where it stops, because his wide receiver 6 does not exist. He only has these 5 wide receivers. I would have liked to have seen him pick up another receiver or 2 in free agency. It didn't happen, though. He elected to go with some running backs instead, although I guess he did pick up Floyd in free agency. But anyway, he's got 5 really, really good ones. So Jarvis Landry, PPR machine. Devontae Parker doesn't look like he's going to be healthy to start the season. Miami does have Kenny Stills to start opposite of Landry. Foster will catch some balls out of the backfield while he's healthy, but I think that Landry is in line for another huge year this year. I would have Jarvis and Jordy flipped. I would put Jordy as his number 2. missing all of last year, but back in 2014, had a fantastic year. I think he was a top 3 wide receiver that year. So wide receivers 1 through 3, Doug has some serious firepower there. Dante Moncrief and Michael Floyd, neither one of those guys are first options on their team, but both guys should be in pretty high-powered offenses. I like Michael Floyd more than John Brown. I like Dante Moncrief more than Philip Dorsett. So they're number 2 options on high-powered offenses. But again, nothing behind that. So bye weeks could be a concern. Injuries could be a concern at his wide receivers. For running backs, Mark Ingram, very, very solid year last year in New Orleans. But then there's a huge drop-off after that with T.J. Yeldon ceding first and second downs to and goal line carries to Chris Ivory. Might be a long season for T.J. Yeldon. I have stock in him elsewhere. I'm thinking about dropping him already, though, because I paid way too much money for him. And it is pretty thin behind that as well. He's got LeGarrette Blount, New England running backs. Who really knows what's going to happen there? Tevin Coleman, back up on his own team. DeAndre Washington, back up on his own team. But I don't see Latavius starting all year. So maybe down the line DeAndre can fill in. And then Darren McFadden, obviously not the starter in Dallas either. So the more I look at this, the more that I'm going to disagree with Yahoo. So here you go, Mike. Here's me giving your team a little bit more props. So according to the projections, where they just factor in starters, Doug is the number 2 team. I would put Mike above Doug in my subjective power rankings. When we go down to tight end, he does get a little bit of a bump here. Jordan Reed is awesome when he's healthy. But again, if Doug sustains any injuries, it's pretty thin behind him. Eric Ebron, yeah, I drafted him. I drafted him way too high. I got rid of him since then, though. I think I got Kenny Stills for that. Stills is looking like a better option than Ebron. Max Williams, Dennis Pitta, Crockett Gilmore, basically any tight end that Baltimore has had over the past 20 years is on his team. So really, really solid starting lineup. Fantastic starting lineup, but it is thin after that. We can look. He does have $38 in cap room. He does have 3 open roster spots, so maybe he can make some pickups. There's not a whole lot obviously out there right now because we just had our auction not that long ago. But he could be in trouble if he loses a couple guys. I'm not going to say that I'm going to sneak up on him in the division or that Ivan's going to sneak up on him in the division. So he's a pretty good bet to make the playoffs. Huge favorite in the division. He's the biggest division favorite. He's minus 315. Ivan and I'm a year away. And Ivan is Ivan. I guess Ivan is coming off a 9-4 season. So, I mean, it could happen. It's not guaranteed, but it's a pretty good bet that Doug will win this division. Almost minus 600 to make the playoffs, and then plus 390 to win the championship, which is not quite as good of odds as what Mike has. So, again, in my subjective rankings, for sure swap Austin and Los Angeles. I think that Doug is in line for a nice season, but if a couple injuries here and there, if he can't hit the right guys on the waiver wire, maybe he's in line for like a 7-6 season. Still winning the division though, but I think that's pretty much worst case scenario for him. Yeah, I'm gonna quick hammer out number 1 here shortly as well, and then I will be done with this. So I will see you guys very, very soon.